Stop scrolling. Stop looking for advice that doesn't work. What I'm about to tell you is something almost no one will admit, something so powerful that it will change the way you think about connection, attraction, and influence forever. Most people are chasing the wrong things, flashy gestures, empty, confident, superficial charm, thinking that's what makes someone notice them, makes someone feel drawn to them. And that's why they fail. That's why they stay invisible, overlooked, and frustrated, while others seem to effortlessly draw attention and admiration. Here's the truth: it's not about looks. It's not about money. It's not about being loud, being flashy, or trying harder than everyone else. Those things are temporary, shallow, and forgettable. What actually moves people, what actually makes someone feel drawn to you in a way that's unforgettable, is something so subtle, so profound, and so shocking that most people will never see it coming. One simple truth, delivered the right way, can create an invisible pull that words, gestures, and effort alone could never achieve. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly what that truth is, how it works on a level most people don't even realize, and why it is more powerful than everything you've been taught about attraction. You will see why some people capture hearts effortlessly, while others struggle no matter how hard they try. And once you hear this, you'll never look at connection the same way again. So watch closely, because this is not advice you can scroll past. This is a force that changes dynamics, flips the rules, and creates influence that lasts. Stick with me until the very end, and I promise everything you thought you knew about attraction and connection will be turned upside down. Let's start by clearing up the biggest misconception that's holding most people back. You've been told, and maybe you've believed it yourself, that attraction is built on looks, on money, on flashy gestures, or even on the illusion of power. You see it everywhere: movies, social media, advice columns. All of them scream, look perfect, be rich, be confident. And yet, if that were truly the secret, the world would be full of people who are admired but never really loved. You know what I mean. You've seen it happen. You've watched someone who ticks all the boxes fail to connect with the people they desire, and you've wondered why. There is a gap between what people think creates attraction and what actually does. That gap is enormous, and it's exactly what we're going to expose. Here's the truth. Here's the truth. Attraction isn't earned by the surface level. It's not about the car you drive, the suit you wear, or the way you smile in a selfie. Those things are temporary, external, and shallow. They may get attention, but attention is not connection. And if you want someone to truly be drawn to you, to feel something real and lasting, you need to understand that it goes far deeper than appearances. It's a principle most people never even consider because they are too busy chasing the obvious, the flashy, the measurable. What is it that makes someone stop in their tracks? Is it the fact that they saw a perfectly tailored outfit, or is it the way a person makes them feel in a single moment? You can have wealth and charm, yet if you are lacking substance, the effect is fleeting. People are wired to detect authenticity even if they can't explain it. There's an invisible radar inside every human being that senses when someone is genuine, when someone is speaking from a place of truth, and when someone is simply performing. That radar doesn't lie, and it doesn't forgive shortcuts. The moment you try to fake connection with money, status, or superficial charm, that radar picks it up. And that's exactly why so many attempts at attraction fail. Here's another layer. Society has conditioned you to undervalue subtle power, the quiet, intelligent presence that doesn't announce itself but demands respect simply by existing. It's easy to overlook because the loud and flashy dominate attention. But true influence comes from depth, When someone exudes a sense of stability, understanding, and emotional intelligence, it resonates far more profoundly than any material display. This is why someone can walk into a room with nothing but their awareness and presence, and suddenly people are drawn to them. The energy they project, the understanding they radiate, touches a part of others that superficial traits never reach. And here's the shocking part: most people don't even realize they're chasing the wrong things. They've been told that confidence equals attraction, that strength equals love, that wealth equals desirability. But those are tools, not causes. Confidence without depth is empty. Strength without empathy is intimidating, not magnetic. Wealth without authenticity is forgettable. People can feel the difference even if they can articulate it. The subconscious mind reacts before the conscious mind even knows what's happening. That's why someone who seems ordinary on paper can create intense desire simply because they communicate truth, presence, and understanding in a way that resonates at a deeper level. Now, let's be clear. This doesn't mean that external factors are meaningless. They are not. Presentation, style, and how you carry yourself matter, but only insofar as they reflect your inner state. A person who dresses well, speaks clearly, and holds themselves with dignity is signaling self-respect, not trying to buy affection. That subtle distinction is the difference between attention that fades and attraction that lasts. Most people get it backwards. They think they need to impress, but the real effect comes from being impressive in substance, not in appearance. The real lesson here, the one most people never admit, is that attraction is an inside-out process. It starts with who you are, not what you show. It starts with understanding yourself, with knowing your values, with speaking and acting in ways that reflect your authenticity. When you do this consistently, the external world responds. People notice, they feel it, and that feeling, an unconscious pull that's impossible to fake, is what drives real, lasting attraction. You see, the world is full of people pretending. It's easy to fall into that trap because it's visible, it's tangible, it's measurable. But the invisible force, the one that moves hearts and changes minds, is born from truth, presence, and emotional depth. So I want you to take a moment and really hear this. If you want to create real attraction, if you want to leave a mark that lasts, start inside. Stop trying to buy attention with money or manipulate desire with superficial gestures. Instead, invest in your presence. Invest in understanding yourself. Speak your truth. Carry your awareness into every room. That's the power most people overlook, the force most people overlook, the force most people underestimate, and the reason so few ever experience true connection. Remember, attention is easy. Connection is rare. Desire built on depth is unforgettable. The moment you embody this truth, you step into a different level of influence, a level where people are drawn not because of what you show, but because of who you are. So ask yourself, are you chasing the surface or are you mastering the depth? Because the choice you make today will determine whether you remain unnoticed or whether you become someone who resonates with others on a level they didn't even know existed. And when you choose depth, when you choose truth, when you choose authenticity, you don't just attract, you captivate. Now let's dive into something most people completely overlook: the power of saying one thing, the single truth that can change everything. Most of the time, when we think about attraction, we imagine gestures, gifts, compliments, or endless effort to impress. We convince ourselves that we have to do 1,000 things to get someone to notice us, to make them feel something. But what I'm about to tell you is shocking because it flips all of that on its head. It's not about doing more. It's about saying one thing and saying it in a way that resonates so deeply it cannot be ignored. This is the invisible lever that moves hearts, and most people never even realize it exists. This isn't a line from a movie, and it isn't a pickup trick you can memorize. This is something far more profound. It's a truth that reaches beyond words, beyond charm, beyond surface level attraction. It's the way you communicate your essence, the part of you that's steady, intelligent, and authentic. When said with the right presence, with the right subtlety, it doesn't just get a reaction. It creates a shift in perception, a magnetic pull that draws someone in, almost against their own will. They don't consciously decide to be interested. It happens naturally because they feel it. Think about it for a second. Why do some people create instant intrigue without trying? Why does one small comment, one quiet insight make someone stop scrolling through their thoughts and pay attention? It's because that person is speaking something real, something that resonates with an inner truth the other person feels but cannot express. Most people chase attention through exaggerate, through loudness, through being seen in obvious ways, but the ones who truly captivate do the opposite. They speak lightly, yet what they say lands heavily. Their words carry weight because they are a reflection of inner clarity, and that clarity is rare. Here's where it gets interesting. This one thing isn't the same for everyone. It's not a universal phrase, and it's not a trick. It's about identifying the subtle truth that communicates who you are without over explaining it. It's about signaling stability, understanding, and presence in a single line. And when it's done right, it bypasses superficial evaluation. She doesn't analyze it. She doesn't critique it. She just feels it. She feels that this is someone different, someone who understands in a way that others don't, someone who holds a depth that she can sense but rarely encounters. That feeling, that subtle resonance, is far more powerful than any elaborate effort to impress. Most people underestimate the potency of subtlety. They think attraction has to be loud, flashy, or dramatic. They think they need to be extraordinary in visible ways. But the truth is the opposite. The most magnetic influence often comes quietly, softly, but with absolute certainty. It comes in the clarity of one thought, one observation, one carefully chosen word that signals something much larger than the statement itself. It's the tip of the iceberg, hinting at the depth below. That hint of depth is irresistible because humans are drawn to what they cannot fully measure, to what hints at mastery, understanding, and inner power. And here's another layer that most people miss. Timing and delivery matter just as much as the words themselves. You can say the right thing, but if it comes from desperation, neediness, or performance, it falls flat. It must come from presence, from grounded self-awareness. It must communicate calm confidence, not urgency. This is why people who seem ordinary on the surface can create extraordinary attraction. They speak truth with the weight of their presence, and that presence carries what words alone cannot. The psychological effect of this is profound. When someone hears this truth, they experience a sense of safety and recognition. They feel understood on a level that is rare and remarkable. It's a pull that doesn't demand attention, it earns it effortlessly. It penetrates resistance because it appeals to something deep within, something that craves connection with authenticity. And here's the thing that will shock most people: they may not even realize why they are drawn in. Their logical mind might try to rationalize it, but their subconscious already knows this is different, this is real, this is magnetic. It's also important to note that this one thing has ripple effects. It changes how she perceives everything else about you. Your gestures, your actions, your presence, they are now filtered through this new lens. Suddenly, everything seems aligned. The energy you project is coherent, and coherence is magnetic. People respond to authenticity more than they respond to effort. The moment you embody this principle, you stop chasing, you stop performing. You become the calm center, the reference point, the one who attracts without trying. And that is incredibly powerful because most people are running in circles, trying to impress, trying to be noticed, and completely missing the point. So let's recap this carefully because it's counterintuitive. It's not about doing more. It's not about saying clever things or performing acts of grandiosity. It's about identifying the single truth you carry inside, the insight that reflects your depth and presence, and saying it at the right moment in the right way. That is the lever of attraction that no one talks about, yet it is more powerful than any display of wealth, charm, or status. It's quiet, subtle, yet devastatingly effective. And here's the challenge: most people never even attempt it. They are too focused on external validation, too distracted by superficial goals, too impatient to develop presence. But if you can harness this, if you can embody this one truth with clarity, authenticity, and confidence, you step into a realm where attention is automatic, interest is natural. This is the power most people ignore and the opportunity most people miss. Now, let's talk about something that most people completely misunderstand: authenticity versus flash. This is where the world trips most men up, and it's the reason why so many efforts at attraction fall flat. Society conditions us to believe that confidence, strength, and charm are the keys to connection. It tells us that the louder we are, the more daring our actions, the more we display ourselves, the more likely we are to be noticed, to be desired. But here's the truth, a truth most people refuse to admit: strength, confidence, and charm alone are not enough. In fact, they can often work against you if they're not rooted in authenticity. The world is full of people performing power, projecting confidence, pretending to be someone they are not. And it shows, the energy leaks, people feel it. And the moment they do, attraction disappears, no matter how good the suit, no matter how fancy the car, no matter how polished the smile. Authenticity is the secret layer beneath all attraction. It's what separates fleeting attention from lasting influence. You see, anyone can mimic confidence. Anyone can memorize a line or craft an image. But authenticity is impossible to fake. It is not something you put on like a costume. It is who you are in your core, expressed in your presence, your words, your gestures, your silence. It is the alignment between your inner world and the outer world you present. And when you achieve that alignment, when you move through life with that authenticity, it is magnetic. It's quiet, but undeniable. It doesn't shout. It doesn't beg. It doesn't demand recognition. And yet, artists, they feel it. And they are drawn to it in ways they cannot fully articulate. Think about it. Why do some people command attention simply by walking into a room? They may not be the loudest, they may not have the loudest, they may not have the flashiest clothes, but there is something about them that makes people lean in, pay attention, and feel a pull they can't resist. That something is authenticity. It is a person who doesn't need to perform to be seen. They are fully themselves, unshakable in their presence, and that stability, that integrity is inherently attractive. It is rare because most people are too busy performing, too concerned with impressions, too distracted by external validation to cultivate it. Here's another aspect that most people overlook. Authenticity communicates security. It tells others without words that you are grounded, that you are real, that you are not seeking approval, and that you are comfortable with who you are. And this is profoundly attractive because humans are wired to seek security in connection. When someone is authentic, they are safe, not just physically, but emotionally and psychologically. This safety creates openness. It makes others lower their defenses without realizing it. And when defenses are down, attraction grows naturally, effortlessly, and almost invisibly. Most people confuse flash with confidence. Flash is external, performative, temporary. Authenticity is internal, grounded, and sustainable. Flash can get attention for a moment. It can make people look, maybe even smile, maybe even it admire. But authenticity resonates, it lingers, it leaves a mark. And that mark is what turns fleeting interest into genuine attraction. This is why some of the most magnetic people are not the ones who show off or try the hardest. They are the ones who are unapologetically themselves. They have nothing to prove because they already know their value. And the world responds to that with fascination, curiosity, and yes, desire. Let's be clear, this does not mean you ignore presentation, how you carry yourself, how you communicate, your style, your voice. They all matter. But the critical difference is that these external factors must reflect your inner reality. They are signals, not substitutes. A man who dresses sharply but lacks depth, who speaks eloquently but is hollow inside, is transparent. People can feel it, and nothing drives people away faster than energy that is incongruent, energy that says one thing while the soul says another. Authenticity is the bridge that aligns these two energies, creating coherence that people instinctively trust, respect, and are drawn to. Here's the philosophical angle that most people never consider. Humans are attracted to truth, not just any truth, but the truth someone embodies. When your outer world reflects your inner world, it is a statement about integrity, about honesty, about alignment. And this is shocking to most people because society teaches us to perform, to fabricate, to project. It doesn't teach us that authenticity is a form of power, a form of magnetism that cannot be replicated or faked. But it is. It is quiet, subtle, unassuming, yet devastatingly effectively. So, what does this mean for you? It means that if you want to attract real interest, if you want someone to feel pulled toward you in a meaningful way, you need to stop chasing approval. You need to stop performing for attention. You need to cultivate your inner alignment and allow your external presence to reflect it naturally. Speak what feels true. Act in ways that feel grounded. Carry yourself with quiet integrity. This is the energy that people remember. This is the energy that draws attention naturally, without effort, without desperation, without gimmicks. And here's the thing that will shock most people. The moment you embrace authenticity, everything else falls into place. The gestures that once seemed necessary become optional. The need to impress disappears. The attraction that once felt elusive starts to happen naturally because you are no longer operating from a place of seeking. It is happening from a place of being. And being is far more magnetic than doing, performing, or showing. Now, let's get into a part that will completely shift the way you think about attraction. Subtlety. Most people think that in order to be magnetic, to be captivating, to draw someone in, they need to be big, bold, loud, or extraordinary. They believe that attention must be forced, that gestures must be grand, that words must impress. And yet the truth is the exact opposite. The most powerful influence, the deepest attraction often comes quietly, almost imperceptibly, yet with a force that cannot be denied. This is where subtlety becomes not just a tool, but a kind of quiet mastery, a way of moving through the world that touches others on a level they cannot articulately. Think about it. How many times have you noticed someone who didn't try to be flashy, someone who said very little, yet commanded more attention than anyone else in the room? There's a reason for that. It's not because they are louder, more charming, or better looking. It's because they operate from subtlety. Their power is not obvious at first glance. It is embedded in the way they speak, the way they carry themselves, the way they make others feel without demanding it. Subtlety signals intelligence, emotional depth, and confidence in a way that flamboyance never can. And the shocking truth is that most people completely underestimate it. Subtlety is effective because it works below the surface. Humans are hardwired to respond to cues that aren't immediately visible, to feel before they think. When someone communicates in a subtle way, it bypasses the logical mind and speaks directly to emotion, to intuition, to the part of the brain that senses authenticity and value. It doesn't scream for attention. It doesn't demand a reaction. And that's why it is so powerful, because it leaves space for curiosity, for desire, for a magnetic pull that grows organically. When someone senses subtle strength, subtle intelligence, subtle presence, they are drawn in without even realizing why. Here's where most people fail. They overcompensate. They believe that volume equals influence, that action equals power, that spectacle equals attraction. But anyone can perform volume, action, and spectacle. Subtlety cannot be performed. It must be earned through presence, through depth, through the quiet mastery of self. This is what makes it so rare, so shocking, and so irresistibly magnetic. People are instinctively drawn to it because it signals mastery and control, not desperation. Subtlety communicates that you are steady, grounded, and unshakable, and that is a quality people unconsciously crave. Another layer to understand is that subtlety amplifies authenticity. When your words and actions are not trying too hard, when they are measured, deliberate, and precise, they become a reflection of who you really are. There's no exaggeration, no overcompensation, no need for validation, and humans detect this. They feel it in ways they cannot explain. That quiet, almost invisible energy communicates strength, intelligence, and reliability more effectively than any grand gesture ever could. Subtlety doesn't shout, "Look at me." Subtlety whispers, and the whisper lingers in the mind far longer than any shout. Is the psychological angle that most people never consider. Subtlety creates space. It gives the other person room to notice, to feel, to interpret. It allows attraction to grow organically because it doesn't force a reaction. When someone is subtle in their words, gestures, and presence, they are communicating that they are confident in their value, that they are not dependent on external affirmation, and that they are comfortable letting others come to them. And that is profoundly magnetic because it flips the dynamic from chasing to being sought. It is quiet power and it is rare. Subtlety also communicates mystery, and mystery is an incredibly powerful force in human attraction. When you are subtle, you reveal only what needs to be revealed and leave the rest to the imagination. You hint, you suggest, you show restraint. This engages the mind, stimulates curiosity, and creates an unconscious pull. People are drawn not just to what they see, but to what they feel they are discovering. And nothing drives deeper intrigue than subtlety combined with authenticity. It is an art, a science, and a skill that most people completely ignore, yet it works in ways that are undeniable. Most importantly, subtlety is not about being passive or disengaged. It is about measured action, thoughtful speech, and conscious presence. It's about conveying depth without shouting. It's about making people feel seen, understood, and intrigued without overwhelming them. And that is the secret most people miss. True attraction is about influence that grows quietly, invisibly, and powerfully. Loudness can get attention, but subtlety sustains it, deepens it, and makes it unforgettable. So, what does this mean for you? It means that if you want to attract, to captivate, to create a connection that is meaningful and lasting, you need to embrace subtlety. Stop trying to force reactions. Stop trying to perform. Instead, focus on presence. Focus on timing. Focus on the art of doing just enough, saying just enough, and being just enough to create curiosity and raw aspect. That is the kind of influence that lasts, the kind that people remember, and the kind that makes hearts turn without even realizing why. And here's the final truth: subtlety is shocking because it goes against everything society teaches. We are conditioned to believe that bigger is better, louder is stronger, and flashier is more attractive. But the ones who master subtlety are operating on a different level entirely. They understand that influence does not need to be loud, attraction does not need to be obvious, desire does not need to be forced. And when you operate with that understanding, you step into a realm of power, magnetism, and connection that most people will never experience because they are too busy performing. Now we arrive at the final piece, and this is where everything comes together. We've talked about how attraction is not built on superficial things, how one truth can resonate more than 1,000 gestures, how authenticity underpins every meaningful connection, and how subtlety creates an invisible pull that draws people in. But all of these principles are incomplete without understanding the moment, the precise point where everything changes, where presence, authenticity, and subtle influence converge to create undeniable impact. This is the point that most people never recognize, and yet it is the most critical factor in human connection. It's the reason why some people can say one thing, act in one way, or embody one state of being, and suddenly the dynamic shifts completely. Here's the truth: attraction, influence, and connection are all about timing and alignment. You can have everything else: the presence, the subtlety, the authenticity. But if it doesn't arrive at the right moment, its power is diminished. People often focus too much on the mechanics of attraction, on what to say, how to act, or what image to project. But the real force is about being attuned, about recognizing the exact moment when your words, actions, and presence will resonate most profoundly. It's about creating a shift, a pivot in perception, where someone suddenly sees you differently, feels differently, and begins to experience you as someone exceptional. This is the kind of impact that cannot be taught in books, cannot be learned from techniques, and cannot be replicated by imitation. It requires awareness, presence, and the courage to act with precision. Think about it for a second. How many interactions have you had where everything felt ordinary, neutral, or flat, until one moment, one phrase, one gesture changed the energy completely? That moment is where attraction crystallizes. It's the point when someone recognizes not just what you are saying, but who you are. They sense depth, authenticity, and presence in a way that transcends superficial observation. And when that happens, everything else you've done, the authenticity, the subtlety, suddenly comes into focus. It is validated. It is amplified. That moment, that pivot, is what transforms potential into reality. What most people fail to understand is that this moment is not forced. It cannot be created through effort or manipulation. It emerges naturally when your presence aligns with your inner truth, when your words reflect authenticity, and when subtlety and awareness are combined with timing. It is not something you can fake or manufacture. It is the culmination of all the invisible work you have done, your self-awareness, your emotional intelligence, your authenticity, your ability to communicate without performing. And that is why it is so rare, so shocking, and so incredibly magnetic. Here's a deeper psychological insight. When someone experiences this moment, they feel recognized and understood at a level that bypasses conscious analysis. Their mind may try to rationalize why they feel drawn, but their emotional and subconscious perception already knows the truth. This is why subtle influence and authentic presence are far more powerful than external displays of confidence, charm, or wealth. They operate on a level that cannot be mimicked, cannot be ignored. That one aligned moment is more impactful than 100 superficial gestures because it speaks directly to the core of human desire. The desire to connect with someone real, someone grounded, someone who radiates integrity without effort. Now consider the ripple effect of this moment. Once it occurs, everything else shifts. Interaction is no longer mechanical or performative. Energy flows naturally. Interest becomes curiosity. Curiosity becomes attraction, and attraction becomes a deep, resonant connection. The dynamic is transformed because the individual has experienced not just presence, but mastery of presence, not just authenticity, but aligned authenticity, not just subtlety, but the subtlety that lands at the perfect time. This is the invisible architecture of attraction that most people never understand and never execute. It is rare because it requires both internal work and acute awareness of the external environment, a combination that most people are unwilling or unable to cultivate. Here's the philosophical perspective. Humans are drawn to coherence, to alignment, to signals that indicate depth and stability. When you operate in alignment, when your words, actions, and presence converge at the right moment, you are communicating a form of integrity that is almost primal. It bypasses reasoning and touches the parts of the mind that respond to trust, safety, and fascination. And this is why one moment, one phrase, one expression of aligned presence can have such a profound impact. It is the culmination of everything you've built within yourself, the external expression of your internal mastery. But there's a challenge. Most people never wait for this moment. They rush, they force, they try to push outcomes before the alignment is ready. And the result is frustration, rejection, or superficial interest at best. Mastery is not about speed. It is about awareness. It is about recognizing when the conditions are right, when presence, authenticity, and subtlety intersect, and then acting with precision. That is the key to creating connections that are not only meaningful, but lasting. So here's what I want you to take away from this. Attraction is not accidental. Influence is not random. Connection is not a lottery. There is a precise architecture to human response, and the culmination of all your internal work, the cultivation of authenticity, subtlety, presence, and truth, creates moments that change everything. These moments are rare, but they are available to anyone willing to do the work, cultivate awareness, and act with alignment. When you understand this, you step into a realm where attention is natural, interest is inevitable, and attraction becomes a force that cannot be ignored